Thomas Holloman was Papa Lacey's great-grandfather. He was born in Tennessee. According to census information, he was then considered mulatto, which is now referred to as mixed. His mother was believed to be Native American. It is likely he was taken to Centerville as an enslaved person. Our legacy grew here in Leon County, Texas, around the Centerville area. Mary Leathers bequeathed to her daughter 180 acres of farmland and enslaved persons. Jane Holloman, who was Tom's wife and Papa Lacey's great-grandmother, and Henry, who is Jane's son and Papa Lacey's grandfather. We believe our family went on to be enslaved on this plantation that will later become known as Samuel Lacey Leathers Farm. After emancipation, our family stayed on Samuel Lacey Leathers Farms as sharecroppers. Unfortunately, at this time, there is little known history about Mama Ruth's lineage and even fewer photos. But according to the census records in 1920, Mama Ruth was 7 years old, and her mother, Maybelle, marked down that she was divorced and had 4 kids and an orphan. It's not clear when Mama Ruth and Papa Lacey met or how they met, but they were married in 1931 and went on to have 10 kids. Today, we will listen to the stories of those 10 kids. What's your full name?
Christine Mays Lacey.
And who is that a picture of?
My husband, Walter Lacey.
And how does he have any nicknames?
Sonny.
How did y'all meet?
At his school, he was going to school with my auntie, was his teacher, Maudie Davenport, and I met him at her school.
How did he propose?
Well, we were together, courting, and then he went to coming around my brother, and then he asked me to marry him.
And when did y'all get married?
February the 21st in 1953.
What was his personality like?
Oh, he had a nice personality. He was real nice.
And what did he do in his off time? What was some of his hobbies?
Well, they would drive the Waxahachie, and there's a place there they call Freakman, little place. They would always go to Freakman.
And what type of place was Freakman?
It was like a restaurant. So there,
Was it on the east?
hang out and play music and all that.
Okay. Did you go with him?
No, my daddy wouldn't let me.
What's your favorite memory about him?
We went to picture show. They called it the picture show back in the. And we would go there, see cowboy pictures.
What do you want people to remember the most about him?
His kids. We have five kids. And don't mess with those kids. He was crazy about them. And he was just a good man, taking care of his family. He worked all the time, every day. I don't even remember him getting sick. No. He just worked. He worked on the farm, and then after we got married and moved to Waxahachie from the country, from Sturt, we lived on Main Street, 1204 East Main, where we lived. And he worked, our rent was $16 a month.
I wish.
And we stayed there until Garrett was born. He's born in '63. And then we moved on Flower Street in our house. And that's where we still live. 116 Flower Street. And just worked all the way. It was hard to get even at $16 back then. We had to work, chop cotton, pick cotton. And that's how we were getting our money. And then he went to school to be a mechanic. And then he went to working on cars, and he worked on cars, cleaning up until he passed. But he worked at, first his job was what they call it the beard house. But he was a mechanic there. He worked for Max Allen, was the first man. And then Max Allen sold his company to John Thornhill. And then he worked for John Thornhill until he retired. And that's when he retired from his job, and then he still worked on the side in the Royal down on his cousin place, Joe Smith. So he worked there for a while. And then he finally just retired when he got sick. He didn't work anymore.
Question. What do you miss most about him?
Oh, I miss, well, really I just miss him, period. I just, every other, well, it got to be every day. And he was just a good man. He really took care of his family, and he looked after us, and he did for us, and I just miss him.
Your full name?
Lacey Legacy.
Were you named after anyone?
Not that I know of.
Okay. When were you born?
September 14, 1934.
And where were you born?
I was born
Did your birth take place at a hospital or at home?
As far as I know, it's at home.
Did your grandparents?
Did I meet them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And any special memories of your grandparents?
Yes, I had memories of both of them, my daddy's mother and my mother's mother. They were, real good to us, as they, grandkids and stuff. And well, both of them was, So I really liked them. I loved them before that, though, Mm-hmm.
I moved to talking about your parents. What did Papa Lacey do for a living?
Well, they were farms, down in the country.
And what kind of work did Mama Ruth do?
Well, we all did work on the farm down here. Both my daddy, mother, and my mother's mother. We all did farm work.
Did y'all work on the same farm?
Well, we did with my daddy's mother, but we died with my mother's mother. They worked in different places that we did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you went to visit Mama Ruth's mom, y'all would have to leave the farm and go
Oh, yeah.
to visit her?
Yeah. Well, they were working on the farm too, but they were in, different locations.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any memories that you would like to share that you have of Papa Lacey and Mama Ruth?
Well, they was, I would say, good to us. I mean, they were good to us, but how they were back in the day. When they tell you to do something, they want you to do it. And if you didn't do it, well, you know what happened after that. But they were real nice people. All of them were real nice people.
Of all the things you learned from Mama Ruth and Papa Lacey, what do you feel was the most valuable?
The most valuable? Well, I don't know. I think when we were kids, we were coming up, and they they'd have us doing stuff like working on the farm. They tell us what they want us to do, or all that kind of stuff, and they meant for you to do that. So, I mean, you didn't get out and do nothing on your own or something like that.
So they had 10 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you fall in those 10? Are you the oldest?
No, I'm next to the oldest.
Next to the oldest.
Next to the oldest.
Who's
Walter was the oldest.
Uncle Sonny was the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite thing to do as a kid for fun?
Well, when we was kids, we had to, if we were gardening, we had to do that. We had, in the evening time when we come to school, we had to do, do your job, what you had to do, get wood together, feed the cow or hogs or whatever. Whatever your job was, that's what you had to do. Mm-hmm.
So, as a kid, did y'all grow your own food, or did y'all have to go grocery shopping? Did y'all live on the farm?
Yeah. When we were kids and growing up, we grew up mostly. Very seldom they had to go to town for anything. We grew everything.
So you were born in Centerville. How long did y'all stay in Centerville? At what age did you move to Waxahachie? At what age?
So we came to Waxahachie before 6.
12?
Yeah, I was 12 years old when we came up here.
Okay. Do you have any memories of any of the houses that y'all grew up in?
Well, yeah, I know about all the houses we stayed in. We was in Centerville, we stayed, down the road there from the cemetery, and then we lived there. We moved on down the road close to where the school was. Then we stayed there. Then that's where our house burned down at, right down the road from the school. Then we had to move across the field, I guess you might well say, to another place. And we stayed over there for a little while. And then we left there and moved over, I guess, a couple of miles from there to another place, which was down the road from where the church was. And then that's when we left there and went to came to Waxahachie.
So you said a house burned down. How did it burn down?
Well, I really don't know because we was at school. And my cousin came by and he told us our house was burning down. And that's when we all got it. He let everybody out and we all went down. But when we got down there to where the house was, it wasn't nothing that we could do to it.
Yeah.
Just, and that's when Sybil was a baby.
Oh, okay.
And then we got to get her out of the house before we got too bad. But that's all we got out of that too, was that her.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you had to start over. And did a lot of your cousins live near you when you were growing up?
Yeah, we had lots of. Well, on my grandmother's side, her sisters, sisters' children, and we all grew up together. Some other people, but everybody was still cousin. See, we was a Lacey side, and our other cousin, they was on the west side. So we just in the Browns, just different ones.
Let's turn to your education growing up. What was school like for you as a kid?
It was nice. I mean, going to school, back in the day when we were going to school, you went to school when you could go, but when it come work time, you went to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it was time to maybe pull the crops,
Yeah.
y'all stayed home and worked?
Yeah, we stayed home and work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many months out of the year do you think you went to school then?
Oh, well, they just all depend. Yeah.
Was that all kids back then though?
Yeah, it's all everybody. I mean, everybody that was up where they could work a little bit,
Did you graduate high school?
No.
What was your first job?
Like what? Other than working on the farm?
Other than working on the farm?
Well, when we moved to Waxahachie, we farmed, out there in Sturry. And then after we stopped doing that, we worked here in town, just like working at the service station, stuff like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get married?
Yeah, I got married. First time I got married in 1955.
And second time?
84.
84.
Mm-hmm.
How long y'all been married?
37 years coming next month.
And what's your spouse's full name?
Really?
How did you meet Aunt Betty?
Well, through a friend of mine.
How did you propose?
Well, I guess I don't know, just, we running around together, messing around, talking and going on, and we just went off from there.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the key to a successful marriage?
Well, I think, it's just, I would say just what you do, just talk, and just how things work out. That's what I would call it. I mean, that may not be the word for it, but that's what I would say.
To some historical events.
Of what?
Historical events. How was it growing up during a Jim Crow era?
A Jim Crow era.
Mm-hmm, like segregation, like the no voting, white water fountain, a black, a colored water fountain.
Yeah. I That's the funny deal. I don't like it, you know. And it goes on, but you know, they really ain't nothing you do about that, you know.
Did you have any experiences like going to town using the wrong water fountain or anything like that?
No time to what now?
Like if you used the wrong water fountain, did you witness anything?
Oh, yeah. We used to do that right here on Saturday. Right up there at Cresses, where Cresses used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had water fountain in there. You want to drink it. Talking about white only, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was the only one that I can remember. I don't think we ever drank to another. But really, you know, mess with the same one, you go and do something else different, but you don't mess with it.
Okay. Where were you when you found out Martin Luther King Jr. was shot?
When I found out he was shot,
Mm-hmm.
I was at work. Yeah, I was at work, but I was at work, but I was just getting off work when that happened.
And how did you feel?
Well, at least you have a funny feeling, you know, I don't know. Same thing about when Kennedy got shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I was downtown, right around the corner from where that happened.
When Kennedy was shot, you was around the corner?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
And how was that experience?
Well, I never get to see none of it. But I really didn't know about it until what I did, I had brought a truck downtown. And I had to go right around the corner where I had to deliver it to. And, but just like I said, I didn't know nothing about it until I got back to work. That's when they were talking about it on the radio. The people at work was talking about it because they were listening to the radio and stuff. But just like I said, I was right around the corner within less than a block from where they were at.
Wow.
Said, what did I do for a living? Now, well, I'm retired now, but I mean, where I was when I was working on trucks and stuff, well, that's where I retired from.
Okay. And what's the best advice you can give us young people in the family?
Yeah. Well, you know, I try to tell you know, when I talk to some of them, I try to tell them, you know, the right thing to do, the thing they shouldn't do, stuff like that. But, you know how the youngsters are these days and time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them listen at you. They act like they listening at you, and then when you gone, they do something all entirely different anyway. So I don't know.
Last question.
Okay.
What do you want people to remember the most about you?
About me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that, you know, just say like I said, I never did nothing stupid or nothing like that. And I always try to be nice to everybody.
What is your full name?
Maggie Earl Jones.
Were you named after anyone?
No.
Do you have any nicknames?
Sue.
When were you born?
February 29th, 1936.
Where were you born?
I was born in Centerville, Texas.
Were you born in a hospital or at home?
At home.
To a midwife or a doctor?
Midwife.
Okay, so let's talk about your grandparents. Did you meet your grandparents?
Yes.
Do you have any special memories of your grandparents?
No, well, I know I used to go and live with them.
Which ones?
Well, both of them. My mother's mother and my dad's mother. But I stayed more with my dad's mother than I did with my mother's mother.
And what was your dad's mother's name?
Anna Lacey.
Anna Lacey. And where did she live?
She lived in Centerville, Texas.
Did she live close to you?
Yes.
Well, before we came to Waxahachie, he worked for, I don't know how you would call it, a man that where we stayed on his place until we came to Waxahachie, and then he went to doing day work.
What kind of work did Mama Ruth do?
Well, she didn't do any either. But they both did about like the same thing.
Do you have any funny or favorite stories about you growing up?
No. No.
Of all the things you learned from Mama Ruth and Papa Lacey, what do you feel was the most valuable?
Well, when I was home, I babysitted a lot, and then after I grew up, I would cook meals and stuff. After we came to Waxahachie and have a meal ready when they come in at lunchtime, and I babysit. So I enjoy both of my parents. I love both of them.
So you said, out of the 10 kids that they have, where do you fall in the order?
I was the third child.
Third child. So who were you closest to growing up?
I don't know. My brother Walter Lacey. We all to him. He was good to us. He I'd say he was kind of like a dad because he stayed after us and all and everything. He was really good to all of us. He see if we needed anything, he would get it for us.
What's your favorite thing to do for fun as a kid or a teenager?
Well, we played, like I said, hide and go seek, play balls, things like that.
Okay, you said you were born in Centerville. Did you spend most of your childhood in Centerville?
No, I was 11 years old when we came to Waxahachie.
Okay. What was it like for you as a kid?
Well, I love to go. Went to school. I love to school. Because after we came to Waxahachie, we went to school out at what they little town called Spirit, and then later on we went to go to school in Waxahachie.
Okay. Did you graduate from Turner?
No, I didn't graduate.
So, what was your first job?
Well, I was doing home health care and stuff like that.
Did you ever get married?
Yeah.
And what was your spouse's name?
Pierce Jones.
And when did y'all meet?
When we met after we came to Waxahachie, because after we came to Waxahachie, we stayed close to them, but years later, after we met, that we married, because he would go around with my brothers, Walter and Lee. He would come up to our house. That's really how we met. He was on with Walter and Lee a lot. They'd go around together different places.
How old were y'all when y'all got married?
I was 17, almost 18.
Okay.
We married in 1953.
1953. What was how was Daddy Perry's personality? What was his personality like?
Well, my dad, I loved him. He was good, and he wasn't. He wasn't around a lot, but I enjoyed him.
How long were y'all married?
62 years.
So you would have grown up in the Jim Crow era.
Right.
How was it growing up during that time?
Well, not so good for I can remember. Not to me it was.
Do you have any stories?
No stories, but I just, didn't like the way we grew up. Because before we came to Waxahachie, it was really hard until we came to Waxahachie. And, you know, 'cause they had to do my mother and them had to do day work and stuff. And we would have to be home by ourselves and stuff like that. But it was really hard back then before we came to Waxahachie.
Okay.
You know, after we came to Waxahachie, you know, we could do more than we did before we came to Waxahachie. We got to go places and stuff like that.
Why couldn't you do that in Centerville?
We did, when we was in Centerville, we was way out in the country. We never went to town or anything like that. We didn't have transportation and stuff like that. You know, so it was a man be down there that on a Saturday, and my dad and them would go to town. They would go buy groceries, and it was a man that lived there that would take them. You know, for us going, we didn't never go to town.
So how did y'all get to Waxahachie?
Well, it was, we had came up here one year on a cotton pick, and then it was this man, he wanted some hands, and so my daddy, after we went back, he came back up to Waxahachie, and he made a deal with this man, and we moved to Waxahachie. We moved here in 47.
What's the best advice you can give to your family, to like your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren?
Well, I just tell them that, you know, when they grow up, you know, to do right and whatever, you know, it takes to make a living and all, just do whatever they can to get by and not, you know, try to get by not doing, because you have to work to make a living. So that's the best thing would be for them. 'Cause my kids,
I want people to remember the most about you.
well, I want to remember the kind of life I lived and how I was and everything. You know, not being, you know, mean or whatever. I just want to be remembered as, you know, getting along with people and everything like that.
One more sibling that we didn't get to interview or talk about yet, and I just want you to tell us a little about him. And that's, well, we know him as Uncle Shawty. Can you tell us his full name?
Louis Elwood Lacey.
And what was his nickname? What nickname did he got?
Shawty. We call him, Shawty.
And where was he in the 10 kids?
Number 4.
What was his personality like growing up?
Oh, he was a jokester. He was always getting in trouble. But he was a very, very good-hearted person. But he was a lot of fun to be with. And he kept getting me in trouble, me and James.
So who was he closest to growing up out of the siblings?
Okay, he's under Mama Sue. And I'm next to him. There's Mama Sue, him, then me, and then James.
And were y'all three closest with like playing and like hanging out or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I kind of, when I was young, really younger days, I played a lot with y'all. As I say, I was a tomboy. I hung out with him because I was always trying to do things that he did, you know. So, but we were close.
And what did he do for a living?
He worked for Sears for, oh gosh, I don't know, probably almost 50 years. When he retired, he was some kind of engineer for Sears Roebuck Company.
Did he live here in Texas?
He lived here in Texas, and I believe it was 1967 or 68. They moved to Denver, Colorado.
And who did he go with?
With his family. He was married to the wife Marie, and they had here they had 3 kids: Francine, Shirley, and Louis Jr. and they moved to Colorado. And then after they moved to Colorado, they had another son, Michael.
What type of things did Uncle Charles like to do in his time off, like his hobbies?
He was another one that was mechanically inclined. They loved cars. They loved working on cars. Just like that, all of my brothers were mechanically inclined. They loved working on cars. And he worked a lot with Walter. When Walter was building the hot rods, they would just stand around and kind of assist each other. But he loved doing that. And he would go when he was here. He would go to the races and stuff with Walter. And then he just enjoyed being around the family.
And what do you want people to remember the most about him?
That he was very family oriented. He loved his family, and he was always wanting to do stuff for the family. He was always doing stuff to take care of mom and daddy. As they got older, and I will always be thankful and grateful for him. So when Pokey died, Charles died, my second husband. Charles said, well, I had a very hard time getting over that. And he called me and talked to me and told me that he was going to send for me and the kids when we come out there. He thought that would be good for me to get away. And it did. I went out there and we stayed out there for 2 weeks. And it really did the world of good for me. And I would always be thankful and grateful for him for that. Because that up until then, I just couldn't seem to come out of the shell. I was just like in a hole and I couldn't come out. But when I went out there and stayed out there for those 2 weeks, I just had a whole different. My family called me Faye by my middle name.
When were you born?
April 1st, 1940. April Fool's Day on April Fool's Day.
And where were you born?
In the city was called Centerville, Texas, but I was really born way down in the woods. And then by a midwife delivered me. No doctor. I was born at home.
Did you meet your grandparents?
Yes, I met my daddy's mother, but I didn't meet my grandfather on my daddy's side. And on my mother's side, I met both parents.
Papa Lacey's side, what was your grandmother's name?
Annabelle Lacey.
And where was she from?
I think from Alabama, down in Alabama.
And on Mama Ruth's side, what were your grandparents' names?
Bill Robbins, and I think his name was Joe Robbins, but we always called him Grandpa's son. But I think his name was Joe Robbins.
Okay. And where were they from?
As far as I know, I think around Centerville. Around Centerville.
And did they live anywhere else?
Grandma Bell lived in Galveston. She from left Centerville, went to Galveston. She lived there for a few years. And then she came to Waxahachie, up to where we were. She stayed in Waxahachie until she passed.
And why did she move to Galveston?
Her sons were in Galveston. Her sons, Uncle Joe, Uncle Edel, and the other one's name was Ed Robbins, I think.
Were any of your grandparents slaves?
No. My mama was a slave.
Do you have any special memories of your grandparents?
My mom, because she was always cooking stuff, and we loved to hang around her because she always had cookies, like cookies and baked cakes, and she had pear trees and plum trees and stuff, and she would make plum jelly and pear preserves, and she would always give us some. So that was exciting to us, we liked that.
Yummy. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your parents. What did Papa Lacey do for a living?
He was like a farmhand. We lived on this the farm. He took care of the land and stuff for these people where we lived.
What kind of work did Mama Ruth do?
I think mostly she took care of the kids until then in springtime, when they planted the cotton and stuff. But when the cotton grew, and then she would go to the field and chop cotton. Then in the fall, she would go to the field and pull the cotton and pull cotton. So she did that. But after that, she just took care of the kids.
Tell me a funny story about your family when growing up.
Okay, the funny story was we lived in this little house. It was storming, and we all had our little buckets to sit on. We didn't have chairs. We had little syrup buckets, brother red syrup buckets. And so it was storming. Oh, we just laughing having a good time. So mom would say, "Y'all be quiet, it's storming." And that just tickled us because she said, "Be quiet." Everybody was laughing. And then it was thunder and lightning and Lee and Sonny was really acting up. And it came a big clap of thunder, and that scared everybody. We all just fell off our buckets onto the floor, and that quieted everybody down. But that was so funny because they were being acting up, and then when that big clap of thunder came, where they got scared and everybody hit the floor. So that was funny to me.
That made me be quiet.
Yeah.
Okay. All the things you learned from your parents, what do you feel was the most valuable?
The love, the closeness of a family, and the value of a family. A family is important, and Daddy told us that there's nothing more important than your family. So family should always love and respect each other.
Right. Okay, so there are a total of 10 kids. Where are you in that order?
I'm number 5.
And who were you closest to growing
I'm
up?
close to Shawty, Lewis, the one called Shawty. I was close to him because when I was growing up, I was a tomboy. I tried to keep up with him, so he was always getting me in trouble.
And what was your favorite memory of him when you were kids?
Okay, my memory of him was when we was, we lived down in Wood, and we lived near AJ and Uncle Jake. And Uncle Jake had horses. And so we was out playing, and so we came up on these horses, and Shaw told me, he said, I bet you ought to ride that horse. I said, I bet you won't. He said, I bet you will. I'm going to show you. But he got up on that horse, and that horse took off with it and started running. And I was scared because I thought he was just gone. And so I started running to go get Uncle Jake to tell him about what had happened. But anyway, I went and got Uncle Jake, and then when we got back out there to where the horse had left from, well, then the horse was coming back with it. They came back, but he got in trouble from Daddy whipping. But Daddy never hardly whipped us, but he whipped him for that because he said he really could have got hurt, on that horse. So that horse wasn't very well tamed.
And how old were y'all?
We were I think I was about 6, and Shaw was probably about 8. He was 2 years older than me.
What was your favorite thing to do for fun as a kid?
Oh, playhouse. I always had plenty of trees around. And I'd make a playhouse up under the tree, and I'd be keeping house. And I'd make mud cakes and take the leaves off the limbs and put them in a can, put them cooking greens, and fix a meal and call ourselves serving the meal. Then I'd have we eat, and I'd clean up after we eat, and I'd get me a limb and tear the leaves off of the limb. To make myself a broom to clean up and sweep up after I got through. So that was my favorite thing to do.
Okay, so let's talk about where you grew up, the house you grew up in. Where was your childhood home located?
Well, we stayed in many houses. The first house that I can remember was the one when the storm came. And then we moved from there to another house farther down in the woods. And we stayed there in that house. That's where we lived when Shaw got on that horse and it ran off with him. And then we left there and went to another house over this place it was called the City. But there were no stores, no nothing. It was just I think it was just 4 families of us that lived over there. So we stayed there for a few years. Then when we left there, we moved to another place over close to the church where they have the third Sunday celebration. They still have the third Sunday in August celebration. And then when we left that house, we moved to Waxahachie.
Okay. Did all of those houses have like bathrooms, indoor plumbing, electricity?
No. No. All of them used a lamp for our light, or a lamp for our lighting. And we had an outdoor toilet.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't have no running water. We had wells. Most of them had a well nearby. We draw the water from the well.
Were there any special memories you had in any of the houses or about the houses?
Well, I know that last house we lived in before we moved to Waxahachie, I had some memories about it because we could sit up in the house and look all outside through the cracks. That house was cold in the wintertime.
So how did y'all stay warm? 'Cause there was no heater.
We had, let's see, big wood heaters in the fireplaces. See, a couple of the houses had fireplaces, but the last house we lived in, it just had a wood heater, a big old heater, and a big old stove, and it had eyes on the top, and Daddy would, and the walls, would cut wood and make the fire, and, put it in that heater, and it would keep the house warm.
Okay, let's turn to education. What was school like as a kid?
Oh, it was fun. Well, down in Centerville, I started out, and then all the classes was at the same place. First, 12th or 9th, however far it went. So we all went to the same school, which was a little one-room house. We were all in that same building, And then that was in Centerville, then when we moved to Waxahachie, well, over there on 77 where that life school lives now, well, we all, that one only went to the 9th grade. And so the one of us that was in school, we all went to that one little house, that one room house in that building, and they had one teacher that taught all of us. And that teacher out there, her name was Miss Boozer. But wasn't related, but her name was Boozer. And then later on, well, Miss Davenport became our teacher out there. And when they shut the schools down in the country, we all had to come to town. Well, Miss Davenport, which is Christine Amy, she was our teacher.
Okay. Did y'all have to walk far for school?
No, we was right there. We didn't talk. We lived right there, right close by.
Okay. Historical events. How was it growing up in the Jim Crow era with segregation, the KKK, no voting rights or anything like that?
Well, I guess I don't know too much about that, but what I remember, okay, like here in Waxahachie, I guess I was a little bit, I don't know nothing about it, so when we came, people lived here in Waxahachie, I remember we lived out of the country, we picked cotton, we'd come to town, spend our little money. And I know that store right there on the corner where that red light is, right there on Main and, I think that's College. That store right there on the corner, that used to be called S.H. Chris. And we would love to go in there because it was a 5 and dime store, you get all kind of candy and everything. And we would go in there and then we would, they have water fountains in there, to just said for colored only, we had this fountain that the color kept running out of this fountain. Then over on the other side of town, on the other side of the courthouse, I should say, there was a store called Ducaneris. It was also a 5 and 10, and it was the same way, and it had the water fountain there, and it said white on this fountain, and then colors on this side. That's what we had to drink out of. And then there was a hamburger stand a little further down, and they, sold hamburger stuff. It was really good, but they kind of the same way, everything was white and colored, and we had to do everything separate. That's the place I can remember about that. And small. And I don't know anything about them both.
Did you ever get married?
Yes.
And who did you marry?
Well, my first marriage, I was married to Jack Boozer.
Okay.
Whoopee!
Where did y'all meet?
we were living on out in the country, out here at Stewart. We were in a house right where the Exxon station is right there. Well, there was a house right down behind there, and we lived in that house until we moved to Waxahachie. And I met him through Walter Lithium. He would come out there with Walter Lithium. That's how I met him.
Okay. Who did you marry next?
The mate was Charles Daly. Emery's dad.
Tyler's dad.
Tyler's dad, yeah.
And how did you meet him?
I had moved, when I was married to Jack, I lived in Dallas. After Jack divorced, I moved back to Waxahachie. And then I met him at the park over here, Gibson Down the Park, because you know, like just like now, you know, in summertime, how they hang out at the park. And so I was going over to the park with a friend girl of mine named Anna Jean. We would go walk to the park, and I met him at the park.
Okay. And the last person you met?
The last person I met was Willie Alexander.
Okay. So a little bit about you. Where was your first job?
I worked in a cafeteria, and it was at Kimball High School in Dallas. I worked in the lunchroom.
What did you?
Well, I guess I should take that back, because when I was growing up, I chopped a little cotton. So I guess that chopping cotton was really my first job. Because I know when we were chopping cotton, I was taller than Charlie was, and he was short. And see, when we were chopping cotton, you only got $3 a day for chopping. And so, by me being tall, I was considered an adult, even though he was older. And he was shorter than me. I got $3 a day, and he didn't get but $1.50.
Oh, I thought he was bad.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that really was my first job. Chopping cotton was my first job.
And okay, what did you do for a living as an adult?
And the adult, well, I worked, as an adult after I was married, my first job in Dallas was at Kimball High School. I worked in the cafeteria. And then I worked in that for a while, but I quit. And then later on, I went to work for a store called Country. I knew I would always go to menus and shop. That's all I was checking the girls, checking her. I thought, gee, I want to do that, you know. And so I decided to do that. But then, when I wanted to do that, I had to go to school, had to take classes for it. So I enrolled in that class for a cashier class. And I took that and took the test and I passed that. So I went to work for a little store on 11th Street called Country Boy. And I worked there until I got divorced and came back to Waxahachie. And after I came to Waxahachie, I went to work for Kroger. And I worked for Kroger until I retired.
What accomplishments are you most proud of in your life?
Oh, just being a good mom, I guess, and you know, raising my kids. Because a lot of that time I was by myself and I raised them, so I'm pretty proud of how they turned out.
What's the best advice you can give your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and your great-great-grandchildren?
Oh, to set goals and reach for the stars and you know, dream and make your dreams come true. You have to work hard, and if you really want to do something, you know, just go for it. And if you're really serious about it, well, it'll all work out. You will accomplish what you set out to do.
Last question. What do you want people to remember the most about you?
Oh, that I was a sweet, kind, great mama, grandma, great grandma, and great great grandma.
And you took the best cakes.
Okay.
Okay, all done. Hey, Granny.
Hey, Monica.
Last interview. I see that you have a picture with you. Can you tell me who's in that picture?
This is my brother, James Wesley Lacey.
Did he have a nickname?
Not that I know of.
And what order was he out of all the 10 kids?
Out of 10 kids, he was number 6.
What was his personality like?
Oh, he had a great personality. He was a fun-loving guy. He loved to have fun, and just a very good-natured person.
Was he ever married?
Yes, he was married to Whitley Hatter Lacey.
And what did he do for a living?
Let me see. I don't remember what all kind of jobs he had, but I think his last job was with a bleak dart container. I'm not actually sure what all he did before that, but he was in the military for a while.
Okay. Did he fight in any wars?
I don't think they were fighting when he was in there.
Okay. What did he like to do when he wasn't at work?
He liked the cars, because you know our brother Walter, he built hot rods, and all of my brothers are kind of mechanical inclined, and they love cars, and to work on cars, and they would go to the drag races, and I know that he loved that.
What is a favorite memory that you have about him?
Oh, the favorite memory I have about him and Lewis, one called Shawty, is when we were living out at Mr. Murphy's. Well, Shaw was so bad. He was so mischievous. Well, not really bad. He was just mischievous. Him and James were always getting into it. And James had his cowboy boots on, and he was gonna chase him around the house to get his cowboy boots back. And it was cold at this time, and Mama was making some tea cakes. And so James told him, said, if you will stand outside for 30 minutes, and I'll give you your boots back. She said, Mama, I'll give you some tea cakes. And so James pulled the boots off, and Charles went outside, stood and looked at the window for 30 minutes. About to freeze, but he stood out there, and then I think he got about 4 or 5 tea cakes and his boots. That was so funny. We all laughed about that. But they was always doing something crazy. They was always at each other's throat about something. They very mischievous.
Not many of us younger folks really got to meet him. When did he pass away?
I believe it was August 1987.
And how did he pass away?
He had cancer of the esophagus.
And what do you want people to remember most about him?
That he was a good person. He took care of his family, and he loved to kid around. But he was a great dad. He took care of his family.
Okay, so we have one of your siblings here with you. Can you tell me her full name?
Smith Ruth Lacey Young.
Was she named after anyone?
Yeah, after Mama.
Does she have any nicknames?
Seal.
And when was she born?
In 1946
And where was she born?
in Seville, Texas.
Was she born in a hospital, a home?
She was born at home.
And where does she fall in the 10 kids?
Let's see. I'm 5. I think she's 7, 8, 9, 10. I think she's number 7.
Okay. And what did she do for a living as an adult?
As an adult, she worked at Owens Corning Fiberglass for like about 33 years.
Did she also chop cotton?
No.
Okay. Was she ever married?
Yes.
And who did she marry?
Troy Young.
Any memories of her growing up?
She was just always a sweet little kid. She just loved to play with her dolls, and her and Joanna. And they were really close. And so they stuck together. They were big buddies.
What is your full name?
My name is Joanna Lacey Edwards.
Were you named after anyone?
I was named after my grandmother, Anna Lacey.
What's your nickname? What do they call you?
Joe.
And when were you born?
Oh Lord, 1946
Where were you born?
in Centerville, Texas.
Were you born at home or in a hospital?
I think it was at home.
Did you ever meet your grandparents?
Yes.
What is a special memory you have of your grandparents?
Ooh, we used to go down to my mom's, and my mom used to come up to our house and make those cookies and we tear them up.
What is your favorite memory of Papa Lacey and Mama Ruth growing up?
My favorite memory of Mom and Dad when we were growing up. Well, we knew that Mom and Daddy had to work hard because they had all of us. And we had to toe the line. And Mama didn't play. She meant what she said, and she said what she meant. Oh boy.
Of all
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But I wouldn't change anything, about them because they are memories and we learned a lot from them, from their experience and growing up too, But it was just nice to have that done.
Of all the things you learned from Mama Ruth and Papa Lacey, what do you feel was the most valuable?
From Mama Ruth, cooking. Because Mama Ruth used to cook some good food. She would have us cooking different things too. We learned how to cook while she was alive. And that was wonderful, because some of the things she cooked, we would have never been able, I would have never been able to cook had I not heard some of those things. So it was wonderful.
And Papa Lacey?
And Daddy, oh my gosh. We remember Daddy. Daddy was a Rolling Stone. I say that because Daddy, he used to tell us about all the different things in Centerville. He used to tell us, stories of him growing up. And we look at him and couldn't believe some of the things, because it seemed like it was so far back. But then when they started talking about him a lot, then it was okay. Because it was something we needed to know that probably nobody else would have been able to tell us. So I enjoyed hearing, what he and Mama had to say about growing up and everything. Not that we were bad children or anything. They loved us, they cared for us, they gave to us everything they could. They didn't hold back anything. They were good parents. They spanked us when we needed it. Mama was strict. And you better not say nothing harsh. But it was all in love, but she straightened us out when we needed straightening out.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't skip a woman. All of us got straightened out when she felt like we needed it. And now Daddy said, no, Ruth, that's love. You don't whoop him enough. I said, thanks to Daddy, he saved us from some licks.
So Mama Ruth and Papa Lacey had 10 kids. What number are you?
Oh, 8.
Number 8. And who were you closest to growing up?
Well, me, Sybil, and Nana really grew up together because Faye and Sue, they were all grown,
Hey Joanna, did you go to college?
Yes, I did.
Which college did you go to?
I went to Texas Southern University in Houston.
So what did you do for most of your adult life? What was your occupation?
For most of my work,
Adult life.
I school for years.
33.
Some years. 33 years.
33 years.
And
Hey Joanna, did you ever get married?
yes, I did.
Who'd you marry?
Jenny Lee Harris.
And how did y'all meet?
Lord have mercy. Jimmy would come up to the house to see James, or they would be going to play some like that, and we kind of got to know, I got to know Jimmy through that. He and James were friends, and I got to know him that way. And I said, Lord have mercy, who is this?
And then you was like, who is this?
Woo! Yep, kind of like that.
Do you remember what year y'all got married?
Oh gosh, me wood ass, I can't think.
1979.
1979.
Like 1979.
Thank you, Joanna. What do you want people to remember most about you?
Oh my gosh. You should have warned me. What do I want them to remember most about me? I think the fact that I went to school, went to college, and that was notarized in the paper. And they would add a little bit you didn't want them to add, but it wasn't anything bad. But, just being young and shy and everything, it was just kind of, you didn't care about them telling it, but I didn't want everybody to know, us coming up and poor times and stuff like that. But much.
What's your full name?
Diane Lacey, yeah.
Were you named after anyone?
No,
Do you have any nicknames?
no.
When were you born?
April 21st, 1949.
Where were you born?
Waxahachie. I don't know whether it was WC10, I don't know whether it was in Freedom or I have no idea.
You were born in a hospital?
I don't know.
Did you ever get to meet your grandparents?
Excuse me?
Did you get to meet your grandparents? Tell me a funny story or a special memory that you have about Papa Lacey and Mama Ruth.
Well, when I was growing up, I mostly was on my daddy's side as far as doing stuff and as far as asking stuff for my Miss Hess across the street. Well, I'll always go to my dad and ask him, can Miss Hess wanted to borrow some sugar, and then my mom would come to me and say, well, I'm the one that's head of the kitchen, not stealing. And why did I say that? She got on me. She spanked me real good. She said, whatever's in that kitchen belongs to me.
Mama Ruth didn't play her.
She didn't play. She stayed. For real, she stayed on me. And I did it again. And she got on me and Papa Lacey.
What's a favorite memory of Papa Lacey? What's a favorite memory of Papa Lacey?
Oh, just him just sitting on the front porch, just racking his chair and nodding. And I really did love my dad, He was my heart, and every time we get ready to go like on a trip or somewhere, he would always get us together and pray for us. And my dad had some kind of healing hand, and when you touch it, something would go all over your body. And right today, I really miss both my parents.
Of all the things you learned from your parents, what do you feel was the most valuable?
Just being around my mom and dad, that was the most important thing to me. And right now, I just still have memories when I go on Jefferson Street past the house. I can just see my mom and my dad sitting on the front porch in the chair, just right back, and then we always go down there and have tea, and she would always invite us to eat, you know. She said, y'all come on. And we have a glass of tea, and we sit in the front yard, and, you know, people would pass by there, and as we gathered in the front yard, they'd be thinking something had happened. Because we always did a family gathering on Sunday after we get out of church. And I miss that.
Yeah. There are 10 kids. Where do you fall in that line of 10 kids? What number are you?
9.
Number 9.
That's why they call me 9.
Oh, I never knew that.
And when I was born, you know, I was supposed to be, they was pronouncing it Nina Diane, and I asked my dad, I said, why did you forget me for? I said, why didn't you forget my name? He said, I couldn't think of it. He said, oh, I could remember Diane. So it was supposed to be Nina Diane Lacey.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah.
Who were you closest to growing up out of all your siblings?
Miss Harriet. And Silver. Because, well, when I finished high school, I moved to Dallas, and I stayed at Silver for a while. And we got real close. And I was just back and forth. So we were all a close-knit family.
What was your favorite thing to do for fun as a kid or a teenager?
Really, just go across the street to the park, play baseball, and we didn't have much of anything going on, but on Sundays, we would go to church, and then after church, we would have to go to YPWW, and that's it. Church and back home.
What's the YPWW?
I can't tell you what those letters stand for, but that was something like BYPU. And we would go to evening service like 6:30.
Okay. Where is your childhood home located?
Right, Washington.
Is it the house on Jefferson?
It would have to be us. We was living in Sterry. I was growing up, so I would Washington. My home for 9 is Jefferson.
What was school like for you as a kid?
Well, 3rd grade, I didn't like my teacher. She was mean. Her name was Miss English. And I would go with, my mom would take me to school. I would beat her back home. And I would hide in the corner of the kitchen because there's a big peach tree right there by the kitchen. And I would stand right there in the corner. And then I would go in the house, and my mom would take me right back to school. I didn't like Miss English, and she was mean. But once I got out of 3rd grade, it was a cakewalk. I was an A and B student all the way through high school.
What year did you graduate?
1967, Turner High School.
What was your first job? Well, let me back up. Did you go to college?
I went to Bradbury and I spent the night.
You just went the night and you came back.
I spent the night and I came back home. I called my mom and said, I don't like it down here. But my sister, Joanna, she told me, she said, well, now you should have filled the application out and went to Southern where I was going, Texas Southern. I said, yes, I should have. So when I called home, with James and Walter, They took me down there, dropped me off, and then they took Joe on to Houston. And I called my mom. I told her that I wanted to come home. And then when my brother got home, James, he told my mom, well, she gonna spend one night down there. So I went back down there because the dorm terrible. They had paper bags up in the vents and plastic mattress. So I come home, I stayed there for a couple of weeks, and I went to Colorado, and I stayed for a couple of months. Then I came back home, and I got on the Texas on the road. And
Why were you in Colorado?
I went out there to say I wanted a job. So Lewis, went out there, they told me to come out there, and I rode the bus. I stayed for a couple of months. And after that, I didn't find a job out there, so I came back home. So I got on that Texas envelope, and I stayed there until 2 years. And then I worked for Southwestern Church Furniture, and I worked there for a couple of years. And then I got on that dark container, and I retired there from the dark container after being there for 35 years.
Wow. Did you ever get married?
Yes, I married Dwayne, I don't know what year. We stayed together for some years, then we got divorced. And then I moved to Dallas. Then I moved back home. I stayed with Mom for a little while. Got my own place on South Rogers. I stayed there for a couple of years. I was just around and around, and then until I got married again for a year. I don't know. I stayed in my mom's house after she passed away. And then I moved to Lancaster, and I've been up there for 20-some years.
Okay. What accomplishments are you most proud of in your life?
I'm saying I'm proud of it, who I am, and I raised my children, to get grown, and finish high school, and my son didn't go to college. She went to Prairie, and she transferred to Texas A&M University in Commerce. And she got a bachelor's degree, and from there, she went on, after she got a bachelor's degree, she went on and got her master's. She has 2 masters, one in psychology, I don't know what's the other one, and then Dwayne Chapel Jr. He graduated in 90,000 around in that area. After he graduated, he went to Southern in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he stayed a month, but it was so expensive, he had to come through. And like today, I'm proud of who they become, and hope he succeed further in life. Both of the son and Dwayne in my heart. Give him a thumbs up.
What's the best advice you can give your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and whenever you have great-great-grandchildren?
Well, George Miles, I'm proud of him. He's made a good vow. He's been in the Air Force for almost 6 years, and he's doing very well. And I hope to be blessed to live to see him with some kids. And so as far as, I just hope all of them succeed and get a good education and be able to take care of themselves. And hopefully get married, raise a family.
Last question. What do you want people to remember the most about you?
Hmm. I hope they remember me as being the best that I can be as far as being a mother, a grandmother, and hope to live to see be a great grandmother.
Anything you want to add? Thank you, Lady Darlene. What is your full name?
My name is Billy Donnell Lacey.
Were you named after anyone?
No, Sybil named me.
Oh, good to know. Didn't know that. Do you have any nicknames?
Bubba. My daddy, 41 years. That's all he ever called me until he passed. Never called me Bill or Billy.
When were you born?
I was born May 19th, 1959.
Where were you born?
W.C. Tannery. Well, they don't no longer, it's not longer there, but W.C. Tannery Hospital.
And what city was that in?
Here in it was here in Waxahachie.
So it's safe to say you were delivered by a doctor and not a midwife?
Yes, I was. My doctor was Dr. Compton.
Dr. Compton. Okay, let's talk about grandparents. Did you get to meet your grandparents?
I got to meet them. My mom's, I was real small. I was probably about 5. She had Alzheimer's, and that's all I can remember. But she passed away when I was about 5. I really didn't get to know Daddy's mama because she lived down in Centerville, but she moved here. But me being the youngest in the group, by that time she had already had all her picks. So Walter was a big pick, so I really didn't have an opportunity to really get close to her. But yeah, I went around her a lot, but she really didn't reference to me a lot.
Okay. So how old were you when you got to meet her?
Well, she stayed here. I met her. Well, I think the first time I met her, I was probably 8 or 9, as far as me remembering, because she lived in Centerville then. And then eventually she moved here to Waxahachie. She used to stay, on Y Street, right?
Okay, so let's talk about your parents. What did Papa Lacey do for a living?
Daddy worked a lot of different places. The first one that I remember, he was working across this place called Work Clothes Rental. You know, it used to be right behind the park. That's where they uniforms, you know, like people, these working mechanics and stuff, they used to clean and wash the uniforms. And he worked there for years. He worked at the bowling alley. He was like more or less janitorial for the bowling, because he was working Work Clothes Rental and the bowling alley janitorial service. Then he quit that, and he started working for this company called that made church furniture. I think it was stuff. I can't remember the name of it no more, but they worked right up on Jackson, right there by the railroad track. They used to make church furniture. And they made the pews and all the remembrance tables and all that. And on the side, he had lawns. He had several jobs where he would go to Miss Landers and Miss Gessner Diner, and he did yards on in the evenings after he got off. Well, sometimes on weekends when he got off work. Mm-hmm.
What kind of work did Mama Ruth do?
Mama was a housekeeper, but when they first moved here, for what they told me, they always in the field picking cotton. But once they moved down to Jefferson, she became more of a housekeeper. She worked for the Eubanks. She worked for the Dillards, and there was another lady they called the Moores. The Moores lived on Marvin. She used to take me over there. I used to play with Miss Moore's grandkids, the young man, I can't remember his name, it's been so long, but we played a lot together and while Mom was working over there cleaning up. But yeah, housekeeping was the main thing that she done. She didn't really have no other job. I mean, she worked maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, go in about 8, come home probably around about 12. The longest she would ever work is Miss Diller's, because they live in Ovilla. And she would work probably to 2. And then she would come home. But that was probably the longest she ever, she never worked 8 hours. She would probably work from 4 to 6 hours when she did work. Maybe 3-4 days out of a week.
Tell me a funny story or one of your favorite stories about your family when you were growing up.
I don't know, but I didn't have none, but when I came up, everybody was pretty much gone. There wasn't nobody but me. And so when I came along, Joanna was, when I started remembering stuff, Joanna was going off to college. Nana was in like 12th grade. But I don't call this funny, but what happened after it happened was funny. But I was in grade school, Nana was in 12th grade. And the action that was taken wasn't funny, but what Mama said afterwards was, okay, she made me lunch because I was like in elementary school. Nana was like in 12th grade. And she made me lunch. And Nana came and Nana asked Mama, where's my lunch? And she said it with a tone, right? And Mama just kind of looked at her and asked her what she said. And then she said, back then they didn't have box springs. They had slats, mattresses that you had to fluff up. So Mama got a bed slat and hit Nana on the arm with it, right? And Daddy said, no, Daddy stuttered. He said, no, Ruth, what you doing? He said, you need to quit. And what was funny to me is Mama said, you want some? But that was basically the funniest. I say the action, what she done wasn't funny, but what she said to Daddy was kind of funny to me because it was like she was going to go after him with the bed slat. So it was kind of funny.
Us women get the feistiness from.
Oh, Mama and them side, Annie, Mama, all of them, they were all fighters. Annie was, cause Annie threatened Daddy, because when he was dating Mama, he wasn't only dating Mama, but he was dating other girls, because I think they was all like teenagers. But Annie told her, like, pretty much, how most people do. It's kind of like, you mess over my sister, you gonna have to deal with me, kind of thing, Cause that what Annie told us or told me when Mama and Daddy were dating. He would go to I don't know where they were going, but they go to their little club, I guess. And Daddy would happen to come in with somebody else, and Annie would be there. And knowing that Daddy was dating Mama, she pretty much got on to him about it and said, they fight a lot. But they got that from their daddy, Grandpa's son. He was a fighter.
Really?
Yeah, so it all went to the girls. I never heard nothing about the boys on that side doing any kind of fighting. Mostly the girls were doing all the dirt. Well, I won't call it dirt, but if you're gonna call feistiness, and it pretty much ran through the family that way. It all went to all the girls. It just passed. So the girl, cause Lee, being as a big man as he is, he wasn't really a fighter. Now, don't make him mad, but he don't fight, cause he and Sonny would get into it, but Sonny would always beat him up, from what I was told. But until he got mad, then he would, he would be able to handle them. But boys, the only fighter was really James Wesley. He was the only one that actually fought. But everybody else, 'cause I didn't have any fights. I think me and your uncle may had a spat over some marbles, but back when we were, yeah, that's when they would live. When Granny came to live with us when she first came back from Dallas, they lived with us, but we used to play marbles in the driveway, and I think we got into it over some marbles, and but I don't really call it because we didn't pass that many licks, maybe one or two, and because back then if you fought, you got a whooping. Well, I got my whooping, and then he got his because Faye wasn't there. But when Faye came, Pat ran, and so he ran, but he had to finally come back. And then when he got back, that's when Faye got into him. But now,
Okay, of all the things you learned from Mama Ruth and Papa Lacey, what do you feel was the most valuable?
From Daddy, family. Family was very important to him, and he wanted to make sure that everybody that he came in contact with knew that they were his family and that he loved them. Mama was a strong-willed person, and when Mama taught you something, it was more or less pretty much strength and how to stand for yourself, pretty much. Daddy was more the family-oriented kind. Mama was the kind of person that would give you the foundation to be able to be a young man or a young woman and give you the knowledge in order to, grow up to be healthy males and females.
Okay, so Mama and Papa Lacey had 10 kids. You said you are the youngest, right? Mm-hmm. Were you close to anyone?
When I came along, I pretty much figured that was going to be one of the questions. The top 5 kids in the family, they all could be my parents. From Walter, Lee, Mama Sue, Shawty, and Granny. They all old enough because they all had kids that were older than me. But if I was close to anybody, it was James. James pretty much, he took me everywhere when I was little. I was a kid, and he would dress me, Sybil would dress me, and he would take me off, and then he'd have me up in the back seat of the car, and while he's going around and visit with his friends. And he get in a lot of trouble because he stayed out late. But I was a baby, but Mom would get on him because he would keep me out so late. And as I grew up later in teenage, Lewis kind of took me under his wing. Well, he kind of like, I visited his house a lot, spending weekends over there. He moved to Denver. He would come get me come from Colorado every summer and take me to Colorado. He even went to the point of trying to get Mama to allow me to go to school up there, but she wouldn't let me go. But those are 2 boys that I was close to. This was more. He was saying that because none of the boys graduated from high school, that I was going to be the first boy to ever graduate from high school, and I was going to be the first boy to go to college. And that wasn't like he was asking me. He was telling me, you going to college, because you're going to be the first one. And so, but those were the two that was really more close to me and paid a lot more attention to me than anybody. I didn't really have nobody that I actually grew up, because all my nephews were my age. So the ones that I came up with, they were all my age. So I didn't have an opportunity. Those were the ones that I played with. I didn't get really close, because Pat and all them, they were living in Dallas, and then they moved up on Moncton. So it wasn't like, in order to go play with anybody, I had to go up on Moncton or on Perry Street or on Flowers in order to play. But yeah, but those were the two. Those two, Lewis and James, were the two that I was most the closest to. Yeah.
So, which house did you grow up in?
I grew up in the one on 409.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in the house on 409 because Mom and them was living out in Sturridge at Mr. Mulkey's, and they, I don't know, well, I guess you could call it, they got a deal on the house, and all of them, all the boys and all of them went in and they bought it, and then they all moved Mom and them to the house on 409, but I don't remember exactly when it was bought. I just remember that's where, when I was growing up, that's where I was.
So, what were some of your favorite things to do as a kid or teenager?
I like sports. I loved football. I wasn't exceptionally good at it, but I liked playing it. I shot a lot of marbles because I had a friend of mine. Well, he was the older guy, but I call him a friend. His name was Uncle Lawrence. He used to work for this transmission place, and they had these ball bearings in the transmission, but he would take them out, and he would give it to us, and we would use them as, they call them steelies back in the day, and we would use them as a steel marble. And marbles and whole bicycles, I probably done made about 5 or 6 different bicycles, painting them, putting them together, making good go-karts and stuff. So
You spoke about how important education was for you. What was school like for you as a child?
Oh, that was rough. Cause you can imagine, I got 9 siblings ahead of me, and 4 of them actually went to the school that I went to, was Oakland Elementary, and that meant all the teachers that they went to or had during that time, even later on in high school. I got Sybil's teacher in the 3rd grade, which was Miss Weaver, and it made it rough when they know who you are, because they have expectations of what you should be able to do. And I got there, and then I got to middle school, and junior high wasn't that bad because I didn't have any teachers that they had, because none of them was at that school. But when I got to high school, I had all the teachers that Joanna had. I had Miss McKnight, I had Miss Davis, I had Miss Dyer, and all the expectations that Joanna had already fulfilled, because Joanna was like an A student, right? So you can't make nothing below the A's, right? And with Joanna being a teacher at the high school made it worse, because if I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, all they gonna do is go tell Joanna, and then Joanna ain't gonna say nothing to me. She'll go tell Mama, and then I get fussed at or get a whooping because I made a bad grade. So education was important, but don't never follow siblings. I do believe education is very important. I came out okay in high school and was able to go to college, but I would tell everybody, that's why I'm telling Christian them, you want to work with your mind, not with your back. Yeah, so you know that's how important education is to me.
And you said you went to college. Which university did you go to?
I went to ET,
What's ET?
East Texas.
What is that now?
It's Texas A&M, sister school
Is that,
in commerce.
okay, so you went to.
Yeah, they call it. It's called Texas A&M now. But back then it was East Texas State University, and A&M bought it, and they changed it to A&M sister school.
What was your major?
Business ed.
Business ed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What fraternity did you pledge?
Phi Beta Sigma.
Okay. And what was your first job out of college?
My first job, I was substitute teaching. So, but I was subbing. I subbed for about a couple of years. That's what I did after I got out of school. I subbed for about 2 years, and then didn't ever get a teaching job. So I started working at Owens Corning with your uncle. We all got hired on about the same time, and probably I think it was 82. We got hired on in 1982 at Owens Corning, and I worked there until I moved to Austin, and then I started working at the Department of Public Safety. I worked there for once I came back to Waxahachie. I worked there for almost 9 years.
So how did you become or fall in love with photography? When did all that start?
Well, not about this Polaroid, and it produced the images that you pull out and strip off, and that interested. It caught my eye, and so I got her to let me take the pictures, and I got pretty good at it. And so, you know, I would buy my own film and take my own pictures. And I got to the point that when we go to our family reunion down at in Centerville, where Mama's family reunion in Centerville, I would take pictures of my uncle. And it would become an expectation that every year he'd be asking Mama where I was, for whatever reason. Like if he didn't see me, he asked Mama where I was, and so he was ready for me to take his picture and Aunt Grace. And you know, it kind of like grew from there. But when I got older, as I got ready to go to college, my mom was kind of strong-willed, and photography wasn't something that she thought was gonna pay no whole lot of money, or you would have a secure job, whatever. So you had to be an educator or a teacher or whatever in order to hopefully saying that you could get money. So I went to school being a business ed major, where I really wanted to be photography.
Did you ever get married?
Yes, I got married. I got married right after I graduated from college. Back then, Mama and them was really strict, being a Christian and whatnot, and staying with your girlfriend wasn't something that you could do. And where Harry was living, she was living next to a church member of Mama's, so that wasn't really that. And so Mama literally told me that I couldn't stay over there with her. And so I said, okay, I fixed that. So I asked her to marry me. So we got married right after I got out of college. And we got married in the summer. Yeah, it was probably like June, July. And we got married at the courthouse. We got married by a judge. And we were married, up till 1992. Now we were, how would you say it? I wouldn't say high school but your mama actually introduced us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I used to go play with Pat and Philip Crenshaw and Steve and them over there on Brackens, and Harriet's mom stayed across the street, Betty, and I would come over there and she would ask Carla who I was, and Carla wound up introducing us, and it took forever. We would get together, but yeah, we got married. And we moved to Austin. And then, well, I guess you could say as we moved to Austin, we grew apart. We separated and moved. I moved back here to Waxahachie. And I was married for about 5 years. I was a single person and wasn't really thinking about getting remarried. And one of Nana's friends called me. Well, I don't know if you know her name was Merlin Jefferson. You probably don't know her, but anyway, Nana worked with her at Dart, and she called me, asked me would I like to meet somebody, and she asked me, did you want to meet Anita? Her name was, well, that's what they call her, but her name was Bonita. And I said, yeah. And so I went over with her. Auntie, I don't know if you know the Whiteheads. Yeah, well, her auntie was Deborah Whitehead. They stayed on Frosson. And I went over there, and we were talking on the phone and trying to set up a date and whatnot. And it was a big deal because she was in one of them things. She didn't want to date no more. And so she was trying to give me all the reasons why she didn't want to date. And I was trying to be persistent. And she finally broke down, and we finally went out. We went to the movies and whatnot. And it came a very nice relationship. It took off real fast. We got remarried. I got remarried in 96. Okay, don't tell Nita. Oh, she gonna see it. But anyway, we got married in 97. And we've been married ever since. Been 25 years.
Aww.
Or 24.
So
Yeah.
what would you say is the key to a successful marriage?
Key to success in a marriage, compromise. Because that's where I failed. I tell anybody in that, that's where I failed in the first marriage. Is if you don't compromise and you put expectation, you can't put expectation on other people. It's a growing process. You're gonna have your ups, you're gonna have your downs, but in the midst of it all, you have to be able, somebody's gonna have to be able and willing to forgive and go, and you have to be able to do that. And I learned that from Walter. I learned it from Mama Sue and Daddy Perry. Cause Daddy Perry had this saying, and I don't know where I heard it, but I heard him say it. He said, there ain't gonna be no quitting and there ain't gonna be no laying off. And basically is that we in this for the long haul. And I said when my first marriage failed, I wasn't gonna have a second one to fail. So I had to be that you have to make changes in your life in order to make your marriage work. You have to be able to compromise. You have to be able to not put expectations. You have to be you have to have an open mind to everything.
What's the best advice you can give your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren when you have them?
What best advice? Well, first of all, you know, I got all my instincts about family from Daddy, and about family. And the best advice that I could give any grandchild or great-grandchild is to love your family. Don't put, I won't say anybody, but I'm just saying, be loving to your family to where you can succeed in life. Family, you don't know how important family plays an important role in your success in life. When you have complications within the family, you tend to have other problems that won't allow you to go further in life. So I just think, be true to yourself. And I told Nita when I found this out is that I would tell my grandkids is that nobody can love you as well as you love yourself, because everybody and anybody, any of those people can let you down. Don't put your faith in somebody to love you. First of all, you have to love yourself. If you can love yourself, you ain't got to worry about nobody letting you down, because there will be that disappointment. But keep in frame of mind, if you have self-confidence and love for yourself, you will go far.
Good advice. Last question. What do you want people to remember the most about you?
Me? I don't know, I really hadn't thought about it, but I've always been an easygoing person, and I think that's what most people will remember, because I'm not a person that bring conflict. That's just not me. It's just like when they say you marry your opposite. Yeah, and so me in both of my relationships and both of my marriages, my wives, or my wife now, is the alpha. I have no problem with it. Harriet was an alpha. I wasn't an alpha because Nita called me passive. I've always been a passive person. I've never been overly aggressive. And I just think that hopefully people will remember me, not saying I was easy or whatever, but I was just that person that whenever what my kids tell me now is that, Daddy, I can come to you and not worry about you fussing. You will listen. And that's what I hope people will remember me, is that once you say what you have to say and then you ask me for some advice, I can give you some. But I'm not going to be overly aggressive and tell you, you need to do this, you need to do that. I want to hear what you have to say. And if I have a comment, I do. And if I don't, I don't. I just want to be remembered as that person that everybody will be able to get along with. I've never had conflict with. Matter of fact, I can tell you, I can count the number of fights that I had all my life. And it wasn't very many, maybe 2 or 3 at the most. And I was just that kind of person. And I just want people, that's what I want people to remember me by, is that character that am is that I'm somebody that they can just come and talk to, and they don't have to worry about no confrontation, not throwing my opinion on you or none of that. That's not who I am. I'm just a person. If you want to talk to me, I'll listen. And I just want people to remember me as that type person, that I'm a listener. I don't fuss, and none of that stuff. I just want to be that person that you can come to if you need to come to somebody, and just to, it just say, is that what they're saying, to have a shoulder to lean on? I just want to be that person you can lean on. I ain't got to do nothing. I ain't got to say nothing. If you just feel confident in me, that you just want to talk to me, that's what I want to be remembered for. That you can just come talk to me and I'll listen.